welcome. How's the weather there in Wisconsin today?
Oh, it's beautiful today. I think this whole week is going to be nice.
Yeah, we're supposed to hit 70s here.
Oh, I don't think it's going to be quite that nice, but I think we are definitely in the 60s. So
that's awesome for November. I'll take it.
Right. Yeah, I think I heard on the radio.
If it rains, we don't have to shovel, so that's even
better.
Right.
Right. We'll take rain.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were saying this morning we'll get ready for the request for snow removal before too long. So
very soon, I'm sure, and that's too soon as far as I'm concerned. So here we go with your why do you need an annual report. You want an annual report to highlight your mission and your impact, thank your volunteers and your supporters, make a case for support so that people see, all the good that you're doing and why they should support what you're doing and why their money matters. And then, again, to report all of the good things you're doing and to be accountable to your donors so that they know, you're using their money wisely, you're being a good steward, and that's really the whole point. And I always made a point of sending out the annual report along with the donor statements. Do you do those at all?
I don't think those have been done in the past.
Okay. And I did it just a very simple mail merge kind of a thing. Okay. And created a statement so that people could see, that way if they lost their thank you letter or their receipt or something, I wasn't getting lots of requests for that. I just sent them out before the end of January so that everybody had them. And again, if they lost them, then I was only getting a handful of requests for reprints, and it wasn't lots of people asking. And adding the annual report helps them to see how their donation made a difference and why they should continue the support into the new year. So that might be something you'd want to pair together. And if you want help with that, doing giving statements, that I can give you my format. It's really simple.
Okay.
Have you ever done mail merge before?
Well, we're experimenting with Little Greenlight now, and and some mail merge stuff that's happening with that. So
okay. Well, and mail merge through Microsoft Word, you use Excel and Microsoft Word together, and they have in Word a step-by-step mail merge wizard. So when you click on the wizard, it tells you everything you need to do, what's next, find this file, click on this, so that you can match up the fields and run your letters, and you don't have to sit and type in everybody's name and how much did they give and all of that kind of thing. So if you need help with that, just give me a holler. It's super easy and really doesn't take much time.
Okay.
So that's that part. So why you want to create an annual report. So you need to ask what's the most important question. What do your donors want to see out of all of this? So you did a whole bunch of stuff. What was the result? What changed in the world, in your community? What happened because of all the work that you've done? You helped a whole bunch of people. How are their lives different now, and why does that matter? You raised a whole bunch of money, and you spent it. So what do your income and expenses tell us about your values, your decision-making, and your impact in the community? That's what your report is going to tell the people who are reading it. So where do you start with all of that? You're going to want to start with a story. And then you're thinking, okay, what story? Where do I find my story? What am I supposed to do? So what I would suggest is just make a list of your staff members who work directly with your clients, board members, volunteers, care receivers that you can interview, people that you might know off the top of your head who had an interesting story, how you did something maybe a little bit different, or how it made all the difference for them to be able to stay in their homes, to get to their doctor's appointments, whatever it might be. So when you interview staff, board members, volunteers, when you're talking to them, ask them to think of somebody who came to them with a pressing problem, or maybe you matched a board member with a particular client, and you could ask them, how are things working out, and just those kind of those not really leading questions, but to with that person. I'm sorry, my phone is beeping in my ear. I have no idea why. Hopefully you can't hear that. But if you talk to your volunteers, a lot of times you'll get a lot more personal stories, which help to really show your donors what you're doing and why it matters. And those are the things you're looking for. Another thing I did is if a client sent in a thank you card, I kept all of those, and I would look at, what kinds of information were in the thank you note and maybe call them back and, just ask some questions and try to get to know them better and understand more of what kind of issues they're facing and use that as your story. So, like, for instance, I guess I'll go ahead and pull up the next slide, but for instance, at the place where I'm at currently, there was a brother and sister who lived together. They're both disabled, both, into their mid to late 70s. The sister had cerebral palsy, and she couldn't really communicate very well. Talking with her was challenging, incredibly challenging, and at times frustrating for various volunteers because you just didn't know if she was understanding, and half the time you couldn't understand what she was trying to tell you. So, but they needed transportation to medical appointments. She needed to go all over the place for various specialists and, all different kinds of things. And then trying to find volunteers who are willing to go all over the place wasn't a really difficult thing. That was actually the easy part. The hard part was getting the brother who had contacted us originally for just doing leaf raking and some snow shoveling. He doesn't have a car. They take the bus. They do what they can. But the buses don't go everywhere that they needed to go. Sure. Getting him to see that we could help in that way too and accepting the help. Otherwise, his sister was going to have to either move to a group home or she was going to have to miss these appointments and not be able to see these specialists and forego care. So sharing that kind of a story, how you had this problem, how your organization was able to help, how they're getting all this contact with several different volunteers, and she gets out on a regular basis and gets to see other people, and it helps to broaden her horizons essentially because she gets to see and be part of the community, and then she's getting the medical care that she really needs. And the brother's not worrying, and they're not spending money on taxis and transferring buses and getting lost and trying to figure out what to do next, and neither one of them is in really great physical condition, so getting on and off a bus is challenging. And, a trip to a specialist will take all day long for them to get to where they needed to go. So these are the kinds of stories you're looking for, things where people could relate, where, maybe you're talking about your mom or a grandmother. Everybody's got a mom or a grandmother, and it's all things that they can relate to when you're telling your story about that person and how your organization made a difference. So here I say forget what you know. You know too much because, you think about the things that you know about the people that you're helping and about the work that you do. It's easy to skip over things when you're trying to tell other people about what you do. So if you forget what you know, it helps you to tell your story better. Think more in the lines of what everybody else doesn't know and how you can help them to learn these things. So one of the things that kind of helps me is if you reconnect with your passion. Why is it that you're passionate about this particular organization and what they do, the people that they're serving? What keeps you connected to them? Think about the stories of how your organization makes a difference in people's lives in your community, again. And every time you write, take a few minutes to think about why this particular subject is calling to you, why this person, why this need. Why is it that it makes a difference to you, and what do you think your donors are going to think, how it's going to make a difference to them? Why do they want to be a part of that? And remember that every single decision that you make about your stories has its roots in emotion, not just about your stories, but about why you give, why you volunteer where you go to the grocery store, where you go to church. All of those things are tied to some kind of an emotion. So when you're telling your story, you want to write what will touch your donors' hearts. Think about feelings and emotions that come out of your writing, and why should your reader feel horrible if your organization ceased to exist? Why would it be bad if tomorrow you weren't there and there wasn't anybody to provide that assistance that you're doing for all of these seniors in your area? So think about that. Think about why you thought this was a worthwhile cause to fight for, to raise money for, to work for every day. And I think that helps you to find the stories that you want to share with your donors. Karen, are you on the line? I see Karen's logged in. I think she's probably trying to get in on the phone. So we'll just keep on going. So how do I find my stories? When you identify who these people are that you want to talk about or talk with, interview, think about what their challenge was or their complaint, their problem, whatever issue that they may have had that brought them to you. And then what did you do specifically to address that particular issue? How are they better off now? Or if they're not better off now, why is it? Is it because you don't have enough resources to help everybody? Do they lack money for whatever their issue is? Maybe they need a ramp or a porch rebuilt or something like that, and you can provide the volunteers who do this, but you can't provide the materials. And how could your donors be helping with those kinds of things? So these are the stories you want to show. This is what we did this year, and this is why it matters. And this is why this story is important going forward. And then look at, like, if they lack money for something that you weren't able to help these people, like maybe you have a waiting list of 200 people. And if you just had X more in your budget to hire another person or make this part-time person full-time, how that would make a difference and why this matters for your donors. And if you had somebody like a big-hearted donor or several of them who could help to fund that, how would that make a change for you? One of the things I wanted to mention, too, is that storytelling is really important because people have always used stories, to pass down their histories, to instruct, to persuade people. People like stories. We kind of thrive on that sort of thing. Why do we go to the movies and why do we read books? We don't read a lot of nonfiction. We read a lot of fictional stories because we like those kinds of things, and we like stories that make us feel good. So think about, too, in advertising, stories sell everything from weight loss to diapers, just everything. And this is why you need this. So we tell you these things so we get you to purchase our product. In our nonprofit world, we use these stories to recruit volunteers, to appeal to our donors, to inform our community. So it makes sense in your annual report that you would include a story about what you are doing and why your annual report, why all the stuff that you're showing, the data that's really kind of dry and kind of boring. Why should we even care about all of these statistics that you're providing? So one other part of storytelling is that it can be a really successful and effective way to communicate a need, to offer a solution, and to present an opportunity for somebody to help through their donations. Maybe you're sending out these annual reports with all of your annual giving. I can't think what you call them, annual giving forms or whatever. Somebody somewhere may see your annual report and not having been a donor and think, wow, this is a really interesting organization. I wonder how I can get involved. You know what I mean? So that's why this is important for you to do these things. Can you see everything on the screen okay right now, Lori?
Yep.
Okay. Karen's trying to dial in, and I keep seeing that she's having issues with it.
Huh.
And I can't type a message to her for some reason. Can you type in the chat box? Do you see that on your screen?
Well, no, I see a raise a hand.
But nothing where you can type. For some reason, my type message box will not allow me to type. I thought I would just give her the phone code because she's logged in. She can see us on the computer, but she can't get the phone part to work. Darn. And I have no idea why this. Normally you click on it and you type stuff, and that's it. So let's try this here real quick. I'm sorry to sidetrack for just a second and see if I can make this. Here we go.
Oh, maybe I was going to say it's.
Yes, go ahead.
There, I was able to, I don't know if you can see that, but typed in Karen.
Yes, okay. I got it. Okay, so now I'm putting here the login code is 1101, and let's see if she can see that. You tell me if you can see that too.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so we'll see. I'm just going to type one more note to her real quick. Sorry about this.
No, that's okay.
And if my typing wasn't so horrendous, this would be it would help if I could use two hands, but I don't have a hands-free set. So,
does she need the call-in number?
Do you happen to have? I did not write that down. Do you have that number?
Yeah. Let me grab it and then. Well, you want me to tell you if you type it?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so 303.
Okay.
248.
Okay.
0285.
Okay.
And then there's an access code.
And that is
49.
Okay, go ahead.
549-3348.
Yeah, and if you don't print off the email, then you don't have that. 549-3348, not a 0. Okay. Okay, so we'll see if maybe she can get logged in. Okay, so any questions up to this point about your story?
No, I don't think so. Makes good sense.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, so you're going to choose a success story that appeals to the emotions of your readers, obviously. Talk about how lives are being changed and improved and make your mission personal to them. So that's the story you're looking for to add into your annual report. Oh, Karen responded. She said no sound, so she'll dial in. Okay, so she's trying. So describe your work in a donor-friendly way. Donors want to know how their money is making a difference, and what is your goal with this story? Karen, are you there?
I am here.
All right, great. I could see you were having some difficulty there, so.
Thank you.
I'm trying to help out.
Sorry I'm running late. So.
Oh, that's okay. We started a little bit late, too. There's just two of us on the line. We have Lori from Washburn County and you.
Oh, okay.
So
Good.
We're just a few slides in here, about 10 minutes in, and you really haven't missed much.
Okay.
So
well, I can see
again,
the PowerPoint, so yep.
Yes, and I have added some stuff, so I'll email all the changes so you guys have that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So when you're writing your story and your annual report, we're just talking about what is your goal? What is the purpose of this annual report? We talked about you need to have an annual report to inform your donors, tell them all the great things that you're doing, how their donations have made a difference in your area, all of that. So you're going to keep all of that in mind when you're choosing your story and when you begin to write your story, is what is the purpose of this? And I don't know if I would take the annual reports, whatever you use for your annual appeal story, and maybe in your annual report, if you're going to send that in January with your giving statements, tie it all up. Talk about, okay, we had this issue. We asked you for money for this issue, and how are we able to help this person now? And it's only, maybe 6-8 weeks past that ask on the annual report, but you're already starting to make a difference so they can see how their donations are working right away and not years from now. So what to include in the rest of your report beyond your story is what did you do last year? How many rides did you provide? Karen puts a great thing on there about how many miles is it around the planet, which I think is really great because it kind of gives an interesting visual for people to see. When you say we drove 18,000 miles, I can't really picture that, but around the globe kind of gives me a good picture. Who did you help? How many seniors? Maybe you'll give some statistics about age ranges or people who are living alone, or how many people are in poverty. What kinds of things did you do to help? Maybe you delivered food. You took people to the doctor. How many people were able to stay in their homes? All of those kinds of things, you want to include those in your report. And it's a good idea to consider all of that up front. And as you're going into January, what do you want to track for next year for the report? What kinds of things do you think your donors would like to know about? Your volunteers, what other kind of information would be helpful for them to maybe keep them volunteering, keep their donations coming in? Obviously, you'll want to list your expenses. You want to talk about where the money came from, and you want to use real-life pictures of your work taking place. Volunteers in action, helping clients, and always make sure you get permission to print those photos, that you don't just do it without people knowing, because some people may not want people to know they're getting help. And especially in smaller communities where more people tend to know each other, rather than in larger places where, the chances of somebody seeing your picture and knowing who it is not as great. And if you need a sign-off form, a release form for those pictures, just let me know. I have those too. So I'm moving into what makes a good header, because on your annual report you should have some headlines about what you're doing. And so you want to pick and choose your headers carefully so that they draw attention. You get people to read it. It doesn't really do a whole lot of good if you go through all this trouble to create a big fancy annual report and nobody looks at it. And it also doesn't do any good even if it's a small one-page report. If nobody reads it, they get it, oh, that's nice, and they don't even look at any of the things they're doing, because then you're not staying in their mind, and you're probably not going to continue receiving donations that way. So again, use headlines that give urgency. They should be clear and relate to whatever pictures you use, and they should introduce your story, facts, or whatever information it is you're trying to get across. So as you prepare your report, again, we're gathering stories, direct quotes, any of those thank you notes you get in the mail or anything like that. Hang on to those all year long and save those. If you send out surveys, that's another great way to collect quotes and thank you notes and any of those things. And then as you interview your clients, you're going to write down personal narratives to draw from and keep the reader's attention. One lady that I had interviewed, she had the best story. She it was really kind of a sad story. She lived in Wausau. She moved to Chicago with her husband. They had 5 kids, and he was killed in an accident at work one day when her children were very young. So she moved back to Wausau because her grandmother was there, and she figured Wausau would be a better place to raise her children than Chicago, and spent several years as a single mom trying to make ends meet and make everything work. And one day she was hanging her laundry out on the clothesline in the backyard, and her neighbor to the backyard of her came over and he said, I understand your husband died. And she said, yes. And he said, my wife died. Do you want to have dinner? And that's his pickup line. My wife died too. So you want to have dinner? So she did. And they ended up getting married, and the rest is just history from there. But I thought that was the greatest story. Everybody's got a great story like that to share. Everybody. You just need to talk to them and spend some time getting to know everybody. And these are the stories that will help to draw out your donors, your volunteers, because they can relate. Everybody could relate to that story, right? It's just hilarious. You think about I think it was late 1950s, and, it was an awkward situation, and, you've already been married. Each of them have a couple of kids, and so my wife died. You want to eat? Okay. So, you do those kinds of things, and just by talking with people, you can get that information. I found it's best to interview your clients in person rather than over the telephone. For a lot, it's hard for them to hear. And if you're like me and you talk fast, it's harder for them to hear and to keep track of what's going on. And when you have that personal connection, when you're there in the room, you'll learn a lot more about them. So as you're getting all of this together, again, keep it short, simple, easy to read. Keep your readers' attention. Help them to see why the need is there and how they can help to solve that need. Okay? And then, again, include captions with your photos. When you put in a picture, don't include paragraphs. People will read short little blurbs with your pictures, much more likely to read that than they are a paragraph. A lot of people like me, I'll look at it and say, that's too many words. I don't have time for that right now. I'll read that later. And then it goes in the pile and I forget all about it. So, what is the most important detail you can see? And then include that in your caption. Whatever, if it's an emotional appeal, couldn't you help Lois get to the food pantry or get to the grocery store, or whatever it is, something that will pull on those heartstrings. So making your captions count, if people read nothing but the captions, what are they going to take away from your stories and from your report? This one, Corky the cat, is one of many animals that has found shelter at the Bond County Humane Society. Okay. It's a cute kitty, but beyond that, what are we getting out of this? Not a whole lot, right? Obviously you can look at this headline and figure out it's probably a great place to volunteer, and maybe I could adopt a cat, even though the headline doesn't say that. There's a cat pictured. It's a humane society. We all know that's what it's for. But when you put the picture in your report, you want to make sure that there's a little bit more to it than just, here's a person who needs your help. You know what I mean? Try to draw in some emotional appeal. And again, you have to do this in a very limited amount of space with a very limited text. And if you just go online and Google nonprofit annual reports, or like your hospital foundation's annual report, different organizations within your community and other neighboring communities, you can get some pretty good examples of things to give you an idea, get you started on this. Oops, my next slide's not coming up. We'll try that again. There we go. Define your accomplishments, not your activities. Don't say, we provided 950 rides this year. Talk about 950, or how much, let's say half that. 400 volunteers provided 950 rides to medical appointments so that our senior neighbors could get the medical care they need, or to the grocery store so that they would have nutritious foods and, whatever else, maybe pharmacy, that kind of stuff. Talk about the difference, not so much the metrics of what it was that you were doing. Talk about what has changed in the community as a result of your work. So these people are now able to stay in their homes, and they don't have to worry about how are they going to get to the doctor. You've alleviated some depression, isolation. Look at the whole picture of what that one ride ends up accomplishing. It's not just a person coming over and driving another person to a medical appointment. Two people are going to talk. They're going to have some time to get to know one another. They're going to result in a medical appointment, coming back home, and over time, maybe they end up becoming really good friends. And all of that is a part of the difference that you're making that started from a ride. So that cost of a ride, if you can calculate how much it costs you to provide one ride, you can look at that and say, for $1.25, look at what this has happened. What is the result of this? We have this long-lasting friendship. They have lunch twice a month, all of those kinds of things that you'll learn as you speak to your clients. Take all of your work over the last year and translate all of that into 3 to 5 major accomplishments. If you try to list everything that you've done, people aren't going to read it, and it becomes a little overwhelming and kind of jamming too much information in a small amount of space. So just really highlight the most important things, and especially the things that helped you to reach your goals, whatever your goals may have been that you set at the beginning of the year. Interview your supporters. Always a good idea to go talk to a few donors, a few volunteers, and include their stories. Why do they care about your program? Why are they giving their time and their money to keep this program alive and helping people in your community? Their personal stories can go a long way in getting new donors on board, new volunteers on board, businesses in the community to support, people to just come out to your fundraising events, to tell other people about it even. Oh, your mom needs help. Well, here's this great place, and my friend volunteers there, that kind of stuff. So look at those people, too, to add to your stories that you're telling. Make your financial information simple, just like a pie chart or a few paragraphs to explain. Just make it really simple. This is where our income came from. This is where our expenses were. And you don't have to detail everything like this is how much we spent on stamps, and paper and ink and those kinds of things. You can just say total expenses and total income, and then list out. I would always recommend listing out your income, grants, major donors, businesses, because it's good advertising for them. It's good PR for you. You're saying thank you again publicly to those people for supporting your organization. And if you have permission from your individual donors, print their names as well as supporters of your organization. If they said don't print my name, make sure you're keeping track of that, and you do not print their name because they will not support you if you don't follow that. So if you're asking that on your response cards, make sure you have some way to track that. Any questions on this here?
Nope.
Okay. And then include lots of thanks. Always, always, always thank your donors throughout your report, through your letter. Because of you, we are able to help this person get what they need, get the support they need to stay in their homes, to remain independent. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can't stress that enough. compile your lists, your board, your executive staff, lists of your financial supporters, all of that information you're going to want to include in your report. You're going to want to list who your board of directors are. If you have a large staff, you may not list all 30 of your employees. You might only list, top 5 people, or, maybe even just your executive director, and you might not go beyond that, depending on how much space you have. Your staff likes to be recognized, so if you can fit everybody, I would definitely recommend that. And the community likes to know who is running the organization, so that's helpful too. So then pull it all together. Tell your readers exactly how they can continue to help. Include a call to action or a request. Like for volunteering, you want to have, if you're sending this out with the giving statements, let's say, you want some way to keep them involved. So you might ask them to consider becoming a volunteer, or tell their neighbors about the great work that they are a part of. Those kinds of things. It's not a direct ask for money, because you just did that. If you're sending these in January, you just asked for money in November and December, so you probably don't want to do that again. You want to do this as more or less a thank you, and maybe give them some other ways that they can get involved. And again, tell them other ways that they can support your organization online, through their time, through telling friends they know to volunteer. All of those different things can be put into that call to action.
Mm-hmm. Well, we also add, ask us about monthly giving, ask us about our long-term fund, ask us about planned giving, asking us about, you need some help with speaking dates. We ask
all
for
of those things are monetary asks. Great
correct.
ideas.
Yep.
Do you put like some kind of a response card or something, so if they do want more information, it's easy for them to do that?
No, we don't.
Okay.
But we direct them either to call us or, check our website, because most of that information is on the, Okay,
and I think those are all great ways too. I don't know if it's a good idea to include some kind of a response card. You have the added expense for starters, and then, I'm sorry, I'm noticing my computer was not plugged in, and I don't want it to die here on us. Hang on one second while I quickly plug this in. Whoops, can't find there we go, it's right there. Again. Okay, that probably will help quite a bit. I was thinking my screen's getting a little dimmer. I don't understand why. But all of those things are great ideas, Karen. If you can show us, if you have a sample, you can show us how you do that. That would be spectacular, and I can forward that on.
Okay. Do you have our 2016 mid-year update?
Is that on your website?
Probably, yes.
I don't. I have not seen that, but I can get that from your website. Yeah, that would be great. And Lori, if you want to go, go ahead, Karen.
We actually do 2 reports during the year. We do one in normally about February that wraps up the previous year, and then we found that doing a mid-year update kind of shows people where we're at by end of July. So we find doing 2 it shows a little bit more up to date as what's going on.
Okay, that's a great idea. And then do you send that to just your donors? Who do you send it to?
It's available at the annual meeting, but then we use it when the donor makes their first gift for the year. We will include this 1-page printout with that thank you letter.
Okay, that's awesome. So kind of as they might be continuing donors, right? So it's not necessarily a new donor package kind of a thing. Okay. That's a great idea. And then mid-year you said July.
Yes.
And things are slowing down a bit in the summertime, so you have a little more time to put those together and maybe include more stories or a little more detail, more than you have at the end of the year. But it's a good idea to keep everybody informed as much as possible. I had suggested sending the annual reports with your statements of giving, that you would send those out by the end of January each year. It's always a good idea if you have enough time to pull it all together.
That's a really time crunch.
Yeah, it definitely
trying to get
is.
even all those hours in from volunteers. I mean, by the end of January, that's really
that's
a push.
Tough one. It's very, very hard, I found, at all the programs to get volunteers to report their time. and lots of people are having to estimate to the best of their abilities because some people just won't. They won't tell you anything, and so you kind of have to guess at some of that stuff. And it does make things. And by the end of January, after you've finished your annual appeal and you've got all your thank you cards and all of that stuff, and there's still things coming in January trying to fit all of that in there, it is a time crunch. But if it's something you can make work, then do it. If it's not, it's just another point of contact with your donors and volunteers. And it's good to keep them informed regularly, keep your organization in the front of their minds. So if you can't do it with your statements of giving, then do it February, March, something like that, so that you can put it together and do it well and get everything together. All right. Lori, are you still on the computer?
I am.
You are? Okay, you dropped out of my screen here, so just wondering if you're still there. Okay, I'll go back here. It doesn't have to be fancy, no. You can keep it very simple and still be very effective without having to break the bank to print report copies. It's awesome. You see some of these annual reports where it's full color and, 10 to 20 pages and just amazing interviews and all of that sort of thing, but it does not have to be that fancy. And I would question, too, for our smaller organizations, if your donors might look at that and say, wow, they must not need our help because that must be really expensive to print. And then you mailed this giant thing, too, and how much did that cost, So obviously you don't have to go through all this trouble. I did create one where it was a full color, it was 4 pages, but I had it only available through our website. We did not have any copies printed. And then we had our simple form. And that way people could see more of the pictures and the stories and that kind of thing. And I was routing everybody who got the regular annual report to look at some more information online. So that is one option. Not everybody's going to be able to do that. Not everybody wants to do that. But it is an option if you wanted to go one step further with your report, and then you don't have to worry about donors saying, how much money you spend on that? How many people were helped as a result? Yeah, kind of a bummer there. So then look at your cover. And, when you do the one-page annual report, you don't have a cover. But on that annual report, you're going to want to make sure you have your logo on there. You're using pictures that are engaging and tell your story. Make your colors all complementary. You don't want people to have watery eyes, and you don't want it to be totally bland. We don't want it to be, the blaze orange thing that I can't stand to stare at without my sunglasses on. I mean, it's obvious stuff. But,
Colleen, you would hate the one that I presented at our annual meeting then, because it has a bright orange cover.
Is it like blaze orange?
Yeah, it is, actually.
Okay, I'll have to wear my sunglasses for that
Exactly.
But when you are looking for that, or a donor's looking for it, it's the one with the orange cover.
That's right. It never hides in the pile of whiteness. It always is outstanding.
And that is key, especially in your marketing. That is key. I look at some of those, what do they call them, day glow colors, like the green, that are so bright. I mean, really very bright. You want to kind of stay away from some of those. But if it's working for you, go with it. And nobody has said anything, so, if they haven't, keep it. And you like it, you go for it. All right, so the next thing is show your impact. If you hired 20 people, so like your expenses went up a ton and you got a couple of really big grants, show that if you hired 20 people, you're expanding. Explain the reason why we needed these 20 new employees is because we're serving more people and we're creating more good, and this is how this is such a wonderful thing. And our plans to sustain this, if you want to talk very briefly about that, again, I would keep it really brief because you don't want your donors to think, number one, you don't need them because you've got this all figured out. You want them to see how their donations and their support are making a difference, enough so that you have increased capacity and the demand, to meet the demand for the services. Back to an awesome cover here. I've got my slides out of order. It looks like this one is from Waukesha. No one can do it alone. And I really like that. And the picture of a volunteer taking someone wherever they needed to go, it really helps people to see what is it that you do. And if your number one requested service is transportation, then why not show that that's a big need? Most communities are not prepared to provide transportation for seniors who can't walk to a bus stop. who can't get on the bus, who can't navigate the bus system, and having things like this helps people to see there's alternatives, and your program is going to help them through that.
Yes,
so then
I like
here's an
that
example
logo.
Of, I'm sorry?
I like that logo. I like that. Yeah, no one can do it alone.
No one can do it alone. I really like that. They have come up with some great things, and I don't know if they have a spectacular marketing team or if one person just comes up with these awesome ideas.
Well, hopefully they will be flattered if we're copying them. So
yes, definitely, and I am sure that nobody will have a problem if you borrow that.
Okay.
You liberate it, you make it your own. I'm sure that would be welcomed. So here's a sample. This is Karen's basic annual report, and I had liberated this from her a number of years ago, probably 2008 at the annual conference. It's just a way to kind of report some of this information back to my board, and then we used it as an annual report. The backside had a story, and then I would include another page with a list of all the individual donors, businesses, that kind of stuff. I didn't get into a whole lot of detail on this particular annual report. We showed some highlights, what our goals were, where our revenue and our income fell, who the board members are, just really basic kind of information. And for me, it was a really great start, and it was something we could put together pretty quickly. That didn't it didn't take me months to assemble, and it was easy to mail. It wasn't very costly. So this is a very effective tool for getting your report and information out there and putting it on your website as well, because you're not scrolling through pages and pages of stuff either. All the information you're looking for is right there, right in front of you. Karen, do you have any comments about this particular report, how you came into this?
It started like this with just columns of information, and now we have gone to at least including one full color picture with it as well, to draw in the eye. But yeah, we just still report all this, this information, but including a story as well. But your idea of putting stuff on the back is like, I guess I could do that. So I'm going to
look at it. And I would tell my employees the same thing. You have all this valuable real estate. Why are you sending it out blank? Use that. When you fold it up, they're going to see both sides when they take it out of the envelope. So, and whatever draws their attention, whether it's the picture on the back or a story that you've included, by using headlines and things that would be attention-grabbing, little quotes wherever you can include those, definitely put in as much as you can. That would be my suggestion. There is anything you can use to show why you're doing what you're doing and how it's making a difference. When you look at like the grants received versus what the budget is, I don't know how many donors look at, well, wow, most of your income's coming from a grant, and if it is, then what happens if you lose that grant? That kind of stuff. So some of those little things which you're not connecting the dots for people, they may see that and say, okay, well, it's not half of your budget, or, just in our case, most of the time it was half of our budget was coming from grants. They can see where it's spread out through, and it's not one particular grant, all of that kind of stuff. So any other comments or anything on this? Anything you'd want to add, Karen?
Nope.
Okay. So with that, I'm up to questions. If you have any questions for me?
Well, I find when you were saying annual reports, I find it interesting because when I put together the annual report for the board meeting, it ends up being multiple pages in length because I have included so many details about budgets and last year's budget, how we did, next year's budget, that actual annual report to the board meeting is very lengthy. But we found this, one page and soon to be 2 pages now that you've sparked that idea, a double-sided copy that we send out to the masses. So if they come to the annual meeting, they can get the big fat booklet of all this information. But for the most part, people like the short, brief synopsis of what's going on, and they get this when they make their first donation for the year. So they'll see where the money went to, for the last year and what our goals are for the coming year.
For the next year, yep. So then they know what am I supporting this year? What is it we're hoping to achieve? and you'll have all of that right at your fingertips. So yeah, that's
Mhm.
a great. I love that you put
Mhm.
that in there for their first donation of the year. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Now, if you have monthly donors, do you send one of these out for them? Well, I would assume their first donation of the year, but do you send a thank you note every time they send a donation?
Yes, we do.
You do.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And
we
some,
also make
there's a little bit.
Yeah,
sorry,
and we
go ahead.
also make a phone call. So we, try to really connect with our monthly donors.
Oh, well, and otherwise they feel kind of left out, was my assumption. Because
Mhm.
I've read both sides, where you should
Mhm.
send a thank you note just for the first donation and then at the
Mhm.
end of the year and give them their
Mhm.
annual giving statement, and then you pretty much leave them alone.
Mhm.
But then at the same time, yeah, we're just an ATM and we're sending you money, but we aren't
Mhm.
getting any information
Mhm.
from you. So I
Well,
think
we go with guidance from the individual. Some individuals will tell us that, well, don't waste your time calling me every month, and say, well, we'll just call you in a couple of months and, just to see
Right.
how you're doing. And so it goes by what the donor requests. But for the most part, we find a lot of our donors, particularly monthly donors, are older folks, and they enjoy the visit over the phone.
It's nice to get that phone call because they might
Mhm.
not get to talk to anybody, and
Correct.
it's an awesome
Mhm.
thing to just to say hello and know somebody's out there and they
Mhm.
appreciate me, which
Mhm.
is really great. So, Lori, do you have any questions?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
After you mentioned that it looked like I dropped off, I realized after that I couldn't keep up with any of the slides, so I've been trying to restart the computer since then. But
okay. Gotcha. Well, I'll send you all of these slides so you have this, and I think I'll have to check back. The recordings aren't being created as quickly as I thought they would, but I will send you it as soon as it's ready. And I also discovered a little glitch in the way that the recordings, you download the file and then you click the link, and it's supposed to just start it. But if you use Chrome, Google Chrome as your internet, whatever, it won't start. So I used one of my kids here to show me, what do I do to make this work? It works in Internet Explorer, but it won't work in the other one. Then he tells me how I shouldn't be using Internet Explorer or Chrome. I should use something else.
Oh, great.
Oh, college kids. College kids are so much fun.
Yeah. And unfortunately, they know enough to be dangerous.
Oh,
right.
Yes. Yeah.
Then you just remind them, I potty trained you. Don't give me any flack for this. Just show me what to do. I taught you how to use a fork. Knock it off. So I'll make sure we have all of that stuff working, and you can just click the link and not have a black screen show up with nothing happening.
Okay.
Then you'll get all of that stuff too.
Okay. All right. Colleen, I will send you the mid-year report, annual report in Publisher, because if you download it off the website, that is a PDF. Which means so I will try to send you that. And Lori, just use it however you wish.
Okay.
So I give you, modify it, make it your own.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Good idea. Yeah.
I do have one last suggestion for everybody.
Yes.
As I do write a lot of grants, I was looking for some resources to help with this whole sustainability issue.
Yes. And
I came across a book, and I will include this in my email with everything for you too. It's called Storytelling for Grant Seekers. It's by Cheryl A. Clark. Really, really good information about your stories, and you can use this whether it's for an annual appeal, an annual report, just a little update that you're sending to your donors or your volunteers, a story on your website, but really great insight into storytelling, and then using that in your grant writing. And it was cheap. It was like a $12 book, incredibly helpful, very informative, and some great ideas. So I'll include that too, so you can check that one out. Every once in a while I come across one, I think, wow, that one was worth the money. Good. So I want to pass along when I found a good one. And I bought a few dogs, so you look at it. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said, I'm glad we have you doing that.
Exactly. It saves me time.
Exactly. And then you don't have to hunt for things. But this one had some spectacular information in your grant writing about the sustainability question. Every time you write a grant, they ask you, well, how is this going to be sustainable? And so how do we come up with an answer for that? And her answer you think, well, how come I didn't think of that? It's so obvious.
Yeah, what is it?
Well, yeah, and you know what? That's what I was just thinking. I should have this written down right in front of me. I will include that little blurb in the email too. She talked about how we have a plan. We have a fundraising plan that we have gone over with our board of directors, and this is our strategic fundraising plan for the next 3 years. And here's who we will approach foundation-wise, and how we are diversifying our funding sources, increasing, by adding a monthly donor program or adding, what would you call it, like bequests type opportunities for people, and maybe starting an endowment fund and growing that so that we could have some regular monthly income to, count on. So all of those ideas, I just, I was staring you in the face, but it just didn't seem obvious to me.
Well, yeah, exactly. I like when somebody else figures this out and then shares it. So thank you, Colleen.
Exactly. Yeah, you are welcome. So I will include that, and you guys can download it on Kindle through Amazon. But again, it's not an expensive book, so if you prefer to have a physical book in your hands, and Amazon's quick, so you can get that one right away. There's my little sales pitch for the day, and I don't even get a kickback for this.
No commission.
No commission, no nothing. So, all right. Well, if you don't have any other questions, I do have an upcoming webinar, and it's not really going to be a webinar. I'm hoping it would be much more interactive like this. We'll take a look at your thank you letter and look at what ways we can improve and update, change whatever wording you want to use, and see if we can create a more fun, more exciting, and more delightful thank you letter for your donors.
Okay. All right. Colleen, would you like to see a copy of the Thanksgiving donor letter that we kind of just did? I can send that to you as well, because we printed it like 2 copies on one piece of cardstock and then chopped it in half, and but it was just basically thanking our large donors and or our monthly donors. So we're sending out about 200 cards or something. So, but yeah, I'll send that to you as well. So good.
That sounds great. All right. Well, thank you very much, and be looking for your email in the next few minutes here.
Okay, great.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks. Have a great week.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.